This is the Boston Celtics newsfeed on CLNS. Today is Friday, June 16th, 2017. This is Mike Walsh reporting for CLNS, the leading online provider of audiovisual coverage for the Boston Celtics. Welcome into part 2 of our interview series with Steve Blackley of Basketball Travelers. If you missed part 1, go back and check it out on the Celtics newsfeed from Monday, June 12th. Blackley told us some really great stories and offered insight into who potential number 1 overall pick Markelle Fultz is as a player and a person. This time around, we welcome Blackley back onto the newsfeed to chat about Boston's 2016 first-round pick, Jaylen Brown. Like Fultz, Brown took part in a Basketball Travelers trip to Australia before his freshman college season at the University of California. All right, so another guy who took this Basketball Travelers trip from the western United States to Australia is Jaylen Brown, who was selected by the Celtics about a year ago now, actually.
Yeah.
And he played his first college games over there with the University of California. And same question as Markelle. First impression when you met Jaylen, you saw Jaylen, what did you see in that kid?
I guess off the court, he's a completely different person to Markelle. Jaylen is super intelligent, really interested in what other people are doing, really interested about, wanting to learn more about Australian politics, our culture, our sport, art, music. Like he really soaked everything in, and was genuinely, interested in, just learning more. And he was for a 19-year-old, it kind of really blew me away that, he was that genuine. And, the coaching staff had mentioned that, he was, freshman year, he was taking extra hard classes and that sort of stuff. So that didn't really surprise me. First time I saw him, I couldn't believe, for a kid straight out of high school, physically how well together he was put. I mean, he was a grown man straight out of high school, basically. And even competing against the pros out here, he was stronger than most of them straight out of high school. So you kind of just knew, with a few more years of, weight training and all the proper coaching he's going to get, you kind of knew physically he was going to be a beast and, was definitely, NBA bound. He just had that wow factor, I guess, by just looking at him.
Yeah, I want to go back to the humbleness real quick. You mentioned that in an email that we had earlier, but it's what struck me most about Jaylen this year is something you mentioned previously about the type of guys you're attracted to basketball-wise with your development high-performance career, is the guys who make the right decisions sort of on and off the court. And I thought Jaylen didn't do a single thing this season that made me sort of shake my head, outside of, a couple defensive issues, things here and there. But everything from, turning down the dunk contest, all that stuff, it seemed like throughout the year he was just such a great kid to talk to, and knew his stuff. And that's...
I agree 100%. I mean, you could see... I mean, he went through some highs and lows during the year where he started when there was some injuries early on with the Celtics and got some good minutes, and then... his form dropped away a little bit and, kind of rode the bench a little bit, and then he never dropped his head. You couldn't, whether he was starting, coming off the bench, sitting on the bench, I think he kept his composure and was willing to, take whatever role was necessary. And then I thought he was outstanding during the playoffs for a kid that didn't actually play that much leading into the playoffs to take a pretty leading role for the Celtics as a 19-year-old rookie. I thought it was really impressive. And one story I will tell you about Jaylen that I kind of think sums him up, and probably speaking out of school with this story a little bit, but the last night of the tour with Cal Berkeley, the kids on that team, the coaching staff were just fantastic and really well behaved and all that sort of stuff. And on the last night of the tour, the coaches said, "All right, you can go and let your hair down a little bit and go out." Over in Australia, you can be you only have to be 18 to go into nightclubs and bars and to drink alcohol in Australia. And they had a team meeting that I was in, and the coaching staff said, you stick together as a group and you can go out, but there's no alcohol to be consumed. Be safe and be in by a certain time. But he kind of gave them a little bit of freedom, which I thought was really good. And some colleges do that, some of them don't. So a few of the coaching staff went out, and the players turned up to this bar, and everyone was there except Jaylen. And, the guys had a good time, went back to the hotel. And on the bus the next day, I was talking to him and said, I didn't notice that you were out last night, at the bar. He was the only one that was missing. And he gave me an answer which kind of blew me away, because at the time he was only 18 years old. And he basically said that, every decision that he makes at the moment, he was touted as a future lottery pick going into that season. He said every decision that he makes at the moment, scouts and NBA teams are watching, and he basically didn't want to go out to a bar and put himself into a position where anything could go wrong, because every decision he makes, could be a $1 million decision. And I thought for a 19-year-old to, be thinking that far ahead and to be that driven and all that sort of stuff, it really blew me away, and probably sums up Jalen as, probably sums up his rookie season, to see how focused he is and, really driven on what he eats and how he looks after his body, and, just a really serious guy that is really driven, and, he's expecting great things of himself. So I'm really excited that he's a Celtic. I think he's going to be a really great player for a long time for the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely worked out, his sort of decision making. He winds up going really early in the draft. When you're watching the draft, the Celtics are coming up. Were you expecting at all them to take him, and for him at all to go that early?
I really didn't get a good feel for that draft, because
it was
Danny Ainge was saying a lot of things, and I had my fingers crossed that he was going to go there, just because it's I knew him, and Celtics are my team, and I kind of thought he'd be a good fit for us. And when they called his name, I was really excited, and I'd swap texts with him and that sort of thing, and he knew I was a Celtics fan, and I kind of joked around while he was over here saying, I hope you go to the Celtics. But for him to end up there was fantastic, and I think his game, the way the NBA is going at the moment, he can guard 2 or 3 positions and all that sort of stuff. I think he's going to be a long time pro for us, and I really think he's got a really high ceiling. And if you hear all the Celtic players in their exit interviews, talk so highly about him as a player and as a person, there really hasn't been a negative story said about him for the entire time, which is a huge compliment to him.
We're all about fresh content here on the Celtics newsfeed, and so are our new friends over at HelloFresh. HelloFresh is the meal kit delivery service that makes cooking more fun, so you can focus on the whole experience, not just the final plate. Each week, HelloFresh creates delicious new recipes with step-by-step instructions on how to prepare these super fresh ingredients. HelloFresh delivers food to your doorstep in a recyclable, insulated box for free. Now, loyal listeners of CLNS Media can get this very special offer. Because of your support to the Celtics newsfeed, you can use promo code BEAT30 for $30 off your first week at HelloFresh. Continue supporting fresh content and fresh food by trying HelloFresh for free. Simply visit HelloFresh.com and enter the promo code BEAT30. Our guest today on the CLNS Celtics newsfeed is Steve Blackley of Basketball Travelers, who spent time each of the past 2 falls with Jaylen Brown and Markelle Fultz. Steve, I'm curious, you spent a couple weeks with the University of California in 2015 and got, I think, more of a first-hand view of Jaylen Brown than many of us in New England were able to prior to the draft. Was there any performance of his that stood out to you?
The one game, there was a game that Cal Berkeley played over here. I think it was their last game of the tour, and they played a team called the Wollongong Hawks. They play in our top pro league. They played in a venue, they call it the Snake Pit. It's one of the country's oldest gyms. It's got a rich history as being a really volatile crowd and a really fun place to play. They actually don't play their pro games there anymore. They just play exhibition games because it's pretty old and run down. But it's probably Australia's most famous venue. And I kind of warned the coaching staff on the bus trip down there to say, it's going to be the game was sold out and it's going to be a really fun atmosphere, and there'll be a lot of beer flowing in the crowd and a lot of vocal supporters down there. And I think the American coaches thought, we're used to that in the college in the college season. They went down there and quickly fell behind to the Wollongong Hawks. They were down by 20 odd points by halftime, and early in the third quarter, a lot of drunken fans there. There was one fan that actually tried to walk up into into the players' area and have words with the coach, and I had to drag the player around, and security had to grab the fan and move him, and security came in, and I remember about halfway through the third quarter, the Cal was still down by about 20 points, and Jalen got fouled really hard, and both kind of teams, there was a bit of pushing and shoving, and the crowd was going crazy, and it was just a really hostile environment, and something switched with Jalen, and he just basically put that team on his back and willed that team back into the game, and he had a block, and it's probably the single best play I've ever seen live. It was literally like that LeBron block last year during the playoffs, where he ran someone down, and the photographer at the game took it where his head is literally above the ring, and he spread eagle, pinning the ball against the glass.
Awesome.
And I've got that on my screensaver, and it was like it was a pretty nice stunt. But you might be able to put that on your Twitter page or something. And it was a pretty they came from 20 odd down to force it into overtime. They eventually lost in overtime. They had 4 starters foul out and eventually lost. But he put that team on his back, and they were at full strength pretty much, and one of the top teams in the country. And from that moment, I was like, the kid's pretty special to do that. And after the game, the coach in the locker room, basically said, "This is a game that you guys, although you lost, this will be a game that you guys will remember for the rest of your lives. Like, it's a pretty unique atmosphere." And I rode with Jalen on the bus on the way back, and that's what he said. He goes, "It was one of the more fun games that he's been involved in, and one of the crazier atmospheres." And even then, you kind of knew that he loved the challenge, and you see him guarding LeBron and clapping his hands and wanting to take on the best, and he doesn't shy away, I guess, from any challenge, and it's kind of what I like about him.
Yeah, for sure. I think he really endears himself to Celtics fans with both how he handled himself all year long and those playoff glimpses that you mentioned there, guarding LeBron and whatnot. I think if he could continue to match the intensity of some of their veterans, he's going to grow really, really quickly. But getting back into Basketball Travelers before we have to go, what's next for you guys? I understand there may be some other players of interest to Boston fans making their way overseas this coming school year.
We've got a few colleges coming out here at the moment. This August, we've got the University of Texas with Shaka Smart, and a potential another Celtic with Mohamed Bamba, the 7-foot center that's a potential lottery pick. So I'm looking forward to. I'm traveling with Texas, but we've also got University of Oklahoma. We've got TCU. Men and women, and we've also got American University that are coming out here. So we've got 5 really good colleges coming out to Australia, and keeps me busy organising games, and they're playing all around the country. And I think Texas is going to draw quite a crowd with they're a pretty big program. So
sure.
Kind of looking forward to seeing how they operate, and it gives me a really good insight. I get to kind of sit in the coaches' meetings and be in the locker room, post game and pre game, and seeing how these coaches run teams and how their strength and conditioning coaches, do their thing. And so for me, it's a really good learning experience to travel with these teams and network and do all that sort of stuff. So kind of really enjoy it, and really lucky to have that position of Basketball Travelers that I do have.
Thanks once again to Steve Blackley for coming on and chatting with us about Jaylen Brown. You can follow Steve on Twitter at Blackley_Steve. That's at BLACKLEY_Steve. And Basketball Travelers is on Twitter at BBallTravelers. If you missed part 1 with Blackley talking about Markelle Fultz's trip down under, go back and check that one out from June 12th. CLNS Radio is about to become CLNS Media, and with our massive growth and expansion, we're looking for your help. If you're interested in work as a cameraman who will have access to TD Garden, CLNS is looking to hear from you. Contact network founder Nick Gelso on Twitter via the CLNS Media official Twitter feed for more info. The Celtics newsfeed on CLNS will continue with daily updates to get fans for the next step in this very intriguing offseason. So to stay up to speed on the 17-time world champions, follow CLNS on Twitter at CLNS Media, and be sure to subscribe to the Celtics newsfeed both on iTunes and Stitcher, as well as CLNS Media Network mobile podcast app. This has been Mike Walsh for Celtics Newsfeed.